Well, I need to thank one of my listeners, Nancy, in upstate New York, who said, I read this book. I've got a book for you. I'd like to send it to you. And she did. And she said, I think it might be up your alley. And it was. And so it's my pleasure to have the author of the book Pressure with me, a memoir by Eric Canori. Eric Canori. Nice to meet you, Eric. How are you?
I'm great, Charlie. Thank you for having me on, and thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy, for setting this up. This is a tremendous book about, well, you think you know what it's about. You think you know what it's about. You think you know that it's about somebody that got on the wrong side of the law. But really, it's a much deeper book. At least that's how I took it. It's a book about your feelings and about being accepted and about growing up in a household in which you're constantly looking for approval and what that does to somebody. And boy, I'll tell you, I'll never look at Chipotle the same way after reading this. The $1 million Chipotle lunch sounded like an option to you at one point. Where do we even start with this? Like, how do you go about describing your life? Because your life, at least phase one of it, was pretty wild, and it seems like you're now transitioning into something else. But how do we get started on this?
I know where we start. You tell them the couple highlights to hook them so they stick around, and then we'll rock and start.
You sold $300 million worth of weed. Let's start with that.
I did well over $300 million worth of cannabis sales in the U.S. before it was legal in any single state in the United States. I smuggled it out of Canada via 18-wheelers, boats, snowmobiles, helicopters, you name it. We did it. Had accounts in every single state of the East Coast between New Orleans and Boston. Operated with burner phones, PGP encrypted BlackBerries, with our own servers. What did I do? Oh, eventually I got caught up with the law, though, in 2009, and they wanted me to work undercover. Caught me in the wrong place, the wrong time. I wouldn't do it. Put me in jail. Fought it, preparing for trial for a couple of years, and eventually my lawyer came to me in a jail cell. He's like, hey, listen, you give them the rest of your money, they'll let you go. And that's, I mulled it over for a few weeks, and that's when I went out into the woods in shackles, and I unearthed close to $10 million in gold bars I buried over the years, gave them to federal agents, and then they let me out. I still did some time, but yeah, I guess that's the end of the story almost, but we can start at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, listen, you can know what the ending of this story is going to be and still want to buy this book and still need to read this book because it's no secret. There's gold on the cover. You read the intro, you know what it's about. It's about this. But the road that led you there, I found really interesting because as a kid, you're very open in this book. It must have been extremely cathartic to write it. You talk about growing up and feeling the never enough to please your mother and this drive to want to kind of get out of the house and prove to the world that you can do it. You can be something. You can be somebody. You can be somebody that's respected and looked up to and somebody that's successful, and you can do all these things. And you can do all those things. And you did do all those things. But it just happened to be something that the federal government considers to be illegal. Moving a plant from one place to another seems pretty stupid to me. I'm somebody that speaks at anarchist conferences, for fuck's sake. I mean, obviously, I have no love for the government, and I'm not somebody that thinks that this sort of thing should be illegal. But it is, and it was at the time. And as somebody that lives in Colorado, which probably will trigger you, considering you were sitting in a jail cell while Colorado gets legal, what did this entire decade of being under pressure teach you about yourself?
Wow, that's a big question to start with, but the entire decade of prior to my arrest or after the arrest?
Prior to your arrest, because you were on a run there pretty good where nobody was messing with you and you were building and building and building. And you didn't ever, at least according to the book, didn't ever feel like you were even close to getting busted because you were so organized and so methodical, and you did the things that nobody else wanted to do. And it seemed like this might be the time. Like this might be the story that nobody ever hears about. The guy that does sell hundreds of millions of dollars of drugs and gets away with it. And nobody ever busts him. I honestly, the way you had this set up, it felt like you were untouchable. Thanks for watching that clip. If you want to hear the entire episode in audio format, just go wherever podcasts are served, search for Macroaggressions, subscribe to the show, and please rate it when you get a chance. Thanks, everybody.